And yet, in another leaked bombshell by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden, the German magazine Der Spiegel claims that the U.S. decrypted and monitored the United Nations internal video conferencing system, and that was last year. Now, yesterday, the newspaper reported that it got documents from Snowden that showed that the agency has eavesdropping posts in 80 U.S. embassies and consulates and was able to decrypt data from video phone conferences within UN headquarters. Here with reaction, author of the book, Crisis Tales, which the NSA may want to read to figure out how to handle this crisis, former White House counsel Lanny Davis, and from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Hi, Sean.
All right, so Lanny,
hi, Sean.
Rather than spying on Americans and targeting conservatives, it's actually refreshing, Lanny, that we're actually going after the bad guys. I like that we're spying on our enemies at the UN. I think it's a good idea, but they're too stupid that they got caught. That's the only criticism I have. I like that they're doing it.
Well, Sean, let me remind you that I was a member of President Bush's Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. I was read into the surveillance program along with my friend Ted Olson. There were 5 of us who got to know about that program. When I was done watching and observing what we were doing to prevent another 9/11, I said to then the director of the NSA, great man, General Mike Hayden, if anything, General Hayden, there are so many hoops and checks and balances and legal concerns about approaching Fourth Amendment rights that we actually may miss the bad guys who are going to hit us again. So I am a supporter of what I think is a great agency with a lot of great people who sometimes need some help in getting their story out. That I agree with you.
All right, but Jay, I support the Patriot Act as written. It's supposed to go after foreigners and
right.
only Americans that are with them. I support data mining. This was never designed to go after Americans. That's the difference.
Well, there's 2 things here, right? Is the one American targets of this. But look at the situation here with the United Nations. Could you imagine if this was done or came out during the Bush administration? Bush administration spying on UN? I mean, it would be news not just in a German magazine or newspaper. It would be national news or international news. But you've hit something that's important. And look, I'm all in favor of, I worked hard on the Patriot Act during the aftermath of 9/11, so I support the Patriot Act and have. But I think the problem with the NSA is twofold. One is Lanny's correct in that their messaging has just been awful. And number 2 is, how did Snowden get all this? I mean, how did that happen? And I think there's a fundamental issue here of how we're operating, that this guy got this data as a contractor. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that the agency let its guard down, or somebody did, within the agency.
A low level.
I'm sure there's a lot of good people inside the NSA. But the fact that we let our guard down, and this guy's got this information, and we're getting kind of drip, drip, drip. And by the way, the Russians have been spying on the United States and the UN for decades, as have the Chinese. I mean, part of what came out in the Snowden information is that the Chinese were doing exactly the same thing here. So this is not unusual or only limited to the United States. But the idea that this information is getting leaked out and we don't have it clamped down in the right way, I think is problematic.
I think that's the bigger part of it, too. You got to agree with that, Lanny. How did a low-level outside contractor have access to that?
Well, it's a function of some of these low-level administrative types to be able to have access. That was a fundamental mistake, and that's one of the many issues that I think the NSA going forward, in addition to a FISA court that has some adversarial appointed person to at least present some opportunity for the court to hear both sides. But going back to the NSA, their mission is to keep America safe and free. If they stumble across an American accidentally, that's a Fourth Amendment issue. There are legal obligations that I watched people pulling back. And if they are not talking about Americans, and that is what we're talking about at the UN, there are policy, political, and especially freedom and safety issues that we ask the NSA to do. And it's just shocking that there might be interceptions of diplomatic individuals at the UN, as it is Rick seeing gambling in the casino in Casablanca.
Well, it's better we spy on the UN.
You know, it's interesting, though, that the Vienna Convention in 1961 prohibits this kind of information gathering. So there's these international treaties, and that was what the UN's going to rely on in trying to, when they said they're going to reach out to the United States, they're going to rely on the Vienna Treaty of 1961. But the reality is, these governments are all doing this. This is not something unique to the United States. All these governments are engaged in this kind of counter-surveillance of other foreign governments. But it's when it goes to the domestic side, to a U.S. citizen, and as Lanny said, and I think we've got agreement on all of this, that's when you run into a whole different set of legal scenarios.
All right, that's a good point.
Let's at least support, on a bipartisan basis, getting reforms into the program so that we can get the NSA to explain what it's doing. And the American people right now are supporting this program to stop future 9/11s. We just have to explain it much better.
And we got to stop spying on American citizens without a warrant. That's not what the Patriot Act allows.
Right.
And maybe we can stop spying on people and targeting conservatives. But we'll get to that another night. Lanny, good to see you. Appreciate it.
Sean.
Coming up next, your choice for video.